Seahawks fans, wherever you may be. Welcome back for another edition of the Seahawks Playbook Podcast. Join your host, Bill Alvstead, and co-host, sports writer and football analyst Keith Myers, as we talk Seahawks football. Seahawks fans, welcome back to another edition of the Seahawks Playbook Podcast. I'm your host, Bill Alvstead, here with Keith Myers. Today's a great, fun show doing beer sampling and question and answers. And some of it's going to be football related. A lot of it's going to be beer related. And hopefully some of it will make us laugh and have a good time. And thanks for joining us, everybody. Keith, how you doing?
I'm doing good. So I was looking back at our history, and our first beer show was a prediction show where it was right before the start of the season. We went through and we had predictions, and we talked about that while we drank, and we sampled beers. And I was like, when did we switch and make it a beer in question? And I was like, oh, we did that on our 100th show.
Interesting.
It was the first time that we did it this way.
I thought it was earlier than that. I thought it was like our second year, and you came over. That was the year you came over, and
but we did predictions.
Okay.
On that for that one. So, anyways, I said I went back and looked at the history for all that, and I was like, that means it's been 135 episodes since we started doing these silly question shows. And I went back and looked at my old set of questions that I brought for you that day.
That's crazy.
Because I still have them. And I was like, all right, let's, there's a couple of these that I can recycle, and we'll see what changed. And
wow.
So this will be fun.
Yeah.
I'm ready.
All right. So, and we're doing 3 beers today. Keith, why don't you kind of go over what we decided we were going to do?
Okay. So normally when we do this, we kind of base it on my taste in beers because, well, I get to pick, so I did.
Because you have taste.
So we do a lot of porters and stouts, darker beers, because that's my thing. This year we decided to go away from that, so it'd be different. And so we're doing IPAs. And what we've decided to do is we've each brought a Northwest style or a clear IPA, a New England style or a hazy IPA, and then a wild card. So you can bring in
just literally just following these instructions was difficult for me, because I went into the local craft brewing little mini market and stood in front of the freezer for like 20 minutes, reading smaller that I could see labels, trying to figure out which one was a Northwest style, which one was a New England style, what was the difference between hazy, double hopped IPA, triple hopped, 10% alcohol beverage, by volume. I mean, holy cow, Keith. I just wanted to drink a beer.
There's a lot of IPAs out there, and they've gotten sophisticated. No. So the big difference, and we'll see this as we go through, a Northwest style, when you pour it into a glass, is going to be
that looked awfully big.
This, so we're right up next to the camera. This is I'm ranking Freem today, which is probably my favorite brewery at the moment, out in Hood River. And so this is just their Northwest style IPA. It's different than their hazy, which you'll see when we pour it, which is you can't see through it. Like, it's much more translucent, and
nice.
Yeah, it's a different style and kind of the same, kind of not, but very different, very tasty. We'll see. So
mine, the Northwest style that I brought is an Old Nation Brewing Company out of Michigan. And it is called 70 Plus West Coast India Pale Ale. And
70 plus is that
70 plus.
Is that the international bitter units? IBUs?
It very well could be. And this could be something I might not even be able to handle, but we'll see. It's only 6.8 alcohol by volume, and the IBUs are in fact 72. So the other ones that I have, I think, are like 68 or something like that. So, all right.
I'm looking to see if it even mentioned the IBUs on this.
I'm going to pop this top and see what I get.
And they do not. But it is 7.2%. So we'll go with that.
We're about even there. So we have 3, right?
Yep.
And we usually record about an hour and a half now. So that puts us on pace for about a half hour of beer. And I'll try. But I may have to just kind of switch. That's why I brought 3 glasses, just in case. Because
I brought 3 glasses as well.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm not normally trying to partake in 3 beers in an hour and a half usually.
Oh, I'm not usually used to partaking in 3 beers more than less than a couple of days.
All right, Keith, I'm pouring this. All right. This is for everybody. This is what it looks like. Get a little head on there. How about that? It's nice, it's clear, just slightly cloudy, but pretty good.
Got a nice smell to it. You smell that? Yeah.
It's like it's a little hoppy and a little berry. It's hard to place. I need to refer to my notes.
You have notes?
I did because, I don't know anything. And so I have to rely on the internet to tell me how I should think and feel. And so I relied on that in this particular situation. So mine says 70 plus West Coast India Pale Ale. This part juicy, part piney IPA will give your taste buds a stern talking to. With the introduction of the 70 plus West Coast IPA, Old Nation brings a classic straight down the middle Pilsner malt beer with a more classic aggressive 72 IBUs. And you can explain that in a second, providing the traditional bitter balance of the style, using a combination of Columbus and Simcoe hops for their pine resiny notes, along with Amarillo for citrus and floral notes. Old Nation brewers added the proprietary Idaho 7 for a new school tropical twist. So it's got all sorts of junk in here.
It's got four different species of hops, or not really species, a variety of hops, because you can cross-pollinate, so they're not different species. So I
can really taste the juniper-y type pine thing going on.
That's going to be the Simcoe.
Yeah, it's pretty interesting.
Simcoe hops. Not my favorite hop for that reason. There are times when it works.
It works. Actually, because it's a West Coast style and it's clear, it's actually somewhat refreshing. It's like, it's not as heavy as it's made out to be, kind of. It finishes pretty smooth considering how bitter it kind of starts.
Yep. The bitter should be up front.
That's exactly
with it.
What it feels
and then
like.
as you drink through the individual sip or whatnot, and as you drink through the bottle, it should get less and less bitter if it's balanced right and done well.
I tell you, I've had a somewhat challenging day. And so I've already finished half the glass I just poured. So I should probably just slow down a little bit, Keith.
Pace yourself, Bill.
Yeah. Otherwise, by the end of the show, when I read the description, I might not get all the words out clearly.
So I'm drinking Frame. It's IPA. They don't have anything special as far as the name. They don't give any of their drinks fancy names or anything. They just tell you what they are. This one is, I can tell you from the flavor, there's some Liberty hops in it and some Cascade hops. There's something else that I can't place, but it's good. It's much more well balanced than what I think of as a typical IPA, and that it is bitter, but it disappears into a sweetness later because of the way that it's malted and put together. This is a fantastic beer, but
it looks terrific.
I've never had anything from Frame that wasn't good.
I've never had anything from Frame. So maybe we could solve that next week.
We should definitely solve that next week.
Yeah. And just for a reminder, just for everyone that's listening, I'm going to see Keith in person for the first time in maybe a year and a half or so.
Yeah.
And so that'll be good. I'm flying up to the Portland area to see my parents on Friday with my son, and getting ready to do the live show on Monday, driving up to Seattle with Keith, and that'll be a lot of fun, and driving all the way back as well. So, and maybe we'll have a chance to get together, apart from that, and we can sit down and have a beer, which would be awesome.
Mm-hmm. Gotta take some time and just, enjoy it, because don't get very many opportunities these days.
So I want to tell everyone too that in preparation for the show, I received my Fanatics $50 gift cards that we're giving away at the live show. We got 5 of these. In addition to that, we're going to have some tickets and all sorts of fun. Special guest Corbin Smith. So if you're in the Seattle area on Monday between 3 and 6, downtown in the Queen Anne district, there's no excuse. You got to come in and at least say hi and join us for a little while and participate in the live show. It's the training camp kickoff show. Okay, Keith, how do you want to do this question and answer segment? I mean, it's not really a segment. It's the entire show. We're kind of sprinkling it in with the beer tasting. Should I read like the first question off of, or should we save the first question off of Twitter?
Actually, let's make sure we get to the Twitter ones, because those we got some really good questions from fans.
All right.
So I want to make sure we don't forget them. Make sure that they get their questions answered.
All right.
So,
well, this is. I'll start with the first one that came in, and this is one of my favorite folks on Twitter. That my followers is Words Read Never. He's a gentleman from Scotland, one of our favorite listeners, and he's got a serious kind of question right up front, and then a little more interesting question to follow up. So the first question is, hey, Bill and Keef. He calls you Keef for some reason, like K-E-E-F. It's just a play on his, he's an English professor, I believe.
Well, he's in Scotland.
Yeah.
So
there you go. So, hey, Bill and Keef, football question, quote unquote. You've been hugely positive about the Seahawk players over the last 2 shows. We're always positive. Which player would you be most disappointed if they made the 53-man roster? Most disappointed. Must give a name, no fudging the question.
Disappointed if they made the 53-man roster?
I know. That's just kind of it's not the way it's done.
I've got a cop-out answer. You could go with Danny Etling. The fourth
because if he's making it, then something seriously went wrong.
If the 4th string quarterback makes the 53,
oh my gosh,
bad things have happened.
I could probably play that game. Let me see. I'm floating through the roster really quick here. Who would I be most upset with? Oh, that's tough.
Is there like a backup kicker?
I'm looking.
That they've signed?
There is kind of a.
That would be a way to go.
Not on the roster, but you could say if somebody other than Jason Myers made the roster, that would be kind of weird. I don't know if I can answer that. I'm trying not to be a homer, but you can't help but be excited for guys that are underdogs that come in and compete and make it in favor of losing a veteran guy or another guy that's expected to make it. Those stories are always really interesting and fun, and you kind of have to respect that at a certain level. I would say Tyler Mabry. Not because he's a bad player or anything like that, but it tells a story when a player like that makes the roster. It means somebody else didn't. And I think that is what you kind of would be upset about, not necessarily the name of Tyler Mabry, but the name of, Will Disley that got hurt again, for example, or whatever. That would suck.
Yeah. It's hard with this kind of question because I'm never going to begrudge a person their job, and if they fought their way onto the roster, great for them, right? And even if they got onto the roster because of an injury, like that means that they were still the next guy up. And good for them. I mean, that means they've been working their tail off and have earned it. So I'm not going to begrudge them. So with that kind of question, it was less I'm disappointed because this person made it, because I'm not going to be disappointed for them, but I'm going to be disappointed for the situation that allowed them to make it. And
that's a good way to answer it.
A guy like, that's why I said, Danny Etling, because if the 4th-string quarterback makes it, that means there's some other issues. There are some bad things that have happened that got him onto the roster. Or, you could even go with someone like Tommy Champion, who really needs to be on the practice squad. But if he's not on the practice squad and he makes the roster, well, what does it tell you about the guys above him? Like, who got hurt, or who showed up really out of shape, or,
or who got outclassed? I mean, maybe Tommy Champion's ready to go, and
yeah, but
it's all on him,
And who didn't make the most of their opportunity to come in and be ready to compete and win their job and that kind of stuff. So it's less about being disappointed in the player and more about being disappointed in the situation that allowed it.
So would you be more disappointed if Penny Hart made the roster and Cade Johnson didn't, or if Cade Johnson made it and Penny Hart did not? What would that tell you about Cade Johnson?
It would,
because those guys are on the bubble. I mean,
absolutely. That's a good question, having those two particular names, because I think that's the 53rd and 54th player, right? As of right now, like, that's who I would pick. One of those two guys is going to make it. The other one's not. And
the odds are stacked in favor of Penny Hart just because of the experience with the club.
Because he was here last year. Yeah. He's also, 5'8" and
180 pounds.
Yeah. So, so there's that. I think what it would tell me is that either Penny Hart has really, developed a rapport with Wilson to a point where they that kid's got some wheels. And if they like what he provides on an offense, where he's like a Tyler Lockett backup in case Lockett gets hurt, or he's just really owning it on special teams, which he played really well last year. It tells me that he's ready for that. If it ends up being Cade Johnson and not Penny Hart, it tells me that maybe the special teams contribution for Penny Hart wasn't enough, and they like Cade Johnson's potential to be
as an actual receiver.
Yeah, to be a bigger portion of the offense and a bigger contributor overall that way. So it tells me that more than anything else.
Second part.
Okay.
Are you ready?
Yeah.
Non-football question. Which one of you would look better in drag?
Bill would look better. He would look better under any circumstances, in any situation. Create any. Which of you would look better in blank? Fill in the blank. The answer is Bill.
I think this is worthy of a debate. I mean, I think it would be interesting to follow up on this with some pictures somewhere in a club someday after doing a beer sampling show in person. That's probably what it would take, and it would probably take double what we currently have here. That's a fun question. I've, surprisingly, haven't found myself dressed up in drag yet, and I'm in my mid 50s. So the clock is ticking. I probably need to make a decision, a life decision as to whether or not I'm going to attempt that or not. Otherwise, you just kind of leave well enough alone, and I'm kind of right there.
I'm like, if you're going to do it right. Go all out. Don't.
That's the way I think.
Don't half-ass it. If you're going to go
Yeah.
drag, just straight up do it.
Yeah. It helps having a little girl like when she's growing up, because she really wants to work on real people in her practice, where she's doing the makeup and the hair and the eyeliner and the, painting the nails and all that stuff. Now, I've had that experience as a father, but it's been now 20 some odd years since that happened. But yeah, no, I totally agree. If you're going to do it, man, you got to go all in. I don't know if I could pull it off with this little thing, or you could, but
yeah, that's the thing is if it required that I shave, I'm not doing it.
That's funny. I shave all the time, go back and forth, so I don't care.
See, yeah, it would just, you can do that. You can shave and then go back and forth. Me, it takes way too long for this to grow in a way that looks decent. So I'm just not interested in, 2 months of looking scruffy.
Yeah. I don't want to get too excited about this question, because I don't want to have anybody like challenge us or something. That would not be good. All right, let's follow up with one more from Twitter. Preston Woods Northwest, at Preston Woods Northwest on Twitter, asks a long-time listener, which is true, first-time question asker, if contract negotiations go south and Jamal Adams sours on the franchise with a holdout and forcing a trade, will it be the biggest failure in John Schneider's tenure?
No, because Percy Harvin still exists.
Yeah, we got a pretty decent season out of Jamal Adams.
Yeah, I got and a record-setting season out of Jamal Adams. Even though he was hurt for a chunk of it, he still set the NFL record for sacks as a safety. Was a huge impact. All of that good influence on the locker room. Just an overall great player. They got one good year out of him. For Percy Harvin, they got
a few good plays, right?
They got a half against Minnesota and a kickoff return in a Super Bowl. And then the following year, they got a bunch of meh until they traded him, I think, because he was just a locker room cancer. And they didn't want to deal with him anymore. They got nothing.
What about all the first round picks and so forth that you could say that Schneider's missed on, quote unquote? Are those considered failures by John Schneider? Or is that just kind of a, you stepped up to the plate, you took a swing and you missed?
There's some of that. I wouldn't. He's traded away a lot of first round picks because he's picking 28th overall or something like that. It'd be different if he had missed a bunch of picks in like the teens. If he had missed on a 15th overall pick, on an 18th overall pick, that's different than when you're trading out of the first round.
I agree.
And missing with pick 33.
Yeah, those are more commodity picks. You get into the late 20s and beyond. You just you're taking some shots, and the everyone kind of lamblasts Schneider for the first round pick on the defensive end that got injured with the ATV, and that's just hindsight. It's 2020 on that stuff.
Yeah, and that's nothing on him. That's they identified a talent.
I think it was everyone kind of talks about a known character issue and discounting that.
Yeah, but you don't. So he is a known character issue, and so it's a guy that should have gone, top 15, somewhere probably maybe between 15 and 20, that dropped to where Seattle took him because of some immaturity and some characters, whatever. But you're getting a guy with that kind of physical talent and tape. And then, but he dropped. But you still don't expect, especially when you have in his contract, hey, you're not going to do these things. You don't expect him to go out and get a traumatic brain injury in an ATV accident before his rookie season. I mean, that's just what it is.
It's a one in a million deal. I mean, nobody does that in the NFL. I mean, rarely. It happens, but rarely. And it just happened to happen there. Okay. We'll come back to a Jamal Adams question later, because I've got one for you later on in the show. Do you have anything?
Oh, I've got tons. Uh, so if you could add any current NFL player to Seattle's roster, who would you pick and why?
Oh gosh, I would probably go with I had his name right on the top of my tongue. The Henry, the running back from Tennessee. I think he would be like a perfect fit in Seattle's offense. It runs exactly the way that Pete Carroll wants to run. Would be the identity. I think I love Chris Carson. I love the way it runs. He's just got that nicked up factor thing. It seems like they kind of meter him a little bit and give and put a count on his carries quite often. And I'm not noticing that with a guy like Henry. Mm-hmm. And he's just a beast and a load, and he does everything well. So a player like that would have a huge impact, I think, on the roster. How about you?
Aaron Donald.
Obvious choice.
I mean, that's the fact that he, as an interior defensive lineman, the best defensive player in the NFL, in my opinion, that helps. But also he comes in as an interior defensive lineman where you can create a huge just bump for Seattle in helping make that position better, the overall defensive line better. The overall defensive line is pretty good already. But then you add a guy like that. And can you imagine a pass rush that has, Dunlap, Aaron Donald, and pick any of the other plethora of pass rushers Seattle has this year.
Yeah. Because those guys make everybody better.
Yeah. And so you put two of those guys on the field and then pick anyone, Alton Robinson on one side and, Daryl Taylor, right? Just it doesn't even matter. You got two guys that you have to double team.
Plus Jamal Adams coming in at any moment.
Yeah. And you, basically, if you're an opposing team, you're just like, let's start in the shotgun 8 yards behind the line of scrimmage, because that's the only way to get the ball out fast enough is to start them out way back there. Just put them in punt formation and have the quarterback throw from there because, yeah, I mean, that's what I would say, but that's been my go-to answer for that question for 8 years now.
Right. I was going to say 10. Yeah.
Because Aaron Donald's just a dominant beast of a player, and he's really fun to watch when the Rams are not playing Seattle. If the Rams are playing anyone else, Aaron Donald is an amazing player to watch and just phenomenal guy. But when he's playing Seattle, I hate him. Just out of pure loyalty.
He's hard to block. I mean, there's no question. It's like it's one of those guys in the NFL where you have to game plan. You got a game plan and you have to stick to it, or he's going to take advantage.
And even game planning around him, he's still going to make plays.
Yeah, he's Aaron Donald.
Yep.
All right, one more question off the internet. Preston Woods again. Another question. Who will last longer in Seattle, Wilson or Carroll? So much of their future seems to be riding on making it to the NFC Championship this season. I don't necessarily disagree with that. I think that's not a goal that's out of line.
That's a great question, because if the team does well this year enough that they put the Wilson trading, rumors and all of that to bed for good, then Wilson outlives Carroll, because Carroll, I think, is a couple years.
I think he should anyway, just for the good of the franchise.
If the team goes out this year and disappoints and ends up 9-7, or even 10-6, make the playoffs and then an early exit.
There's 17 games this year too, by the way.
Oh, you know what I'm saying though.
No,
I'm just comparing, to past years, but so let's say they go, God, that would it be 9-8? No, that's probably not going to make the playoffs. 10-7, and then, in that kind of range. And then, but yeah, first round exit. Like, I could see the whole Pete Carroll, Russell Wilson rumblings come back again. and this time them finding a home.
Yeah.
Not the Bears with the 20th pick offering a boatload, but no quarterback, but instead someone with the 3rd pick overall and offering a boatload of picks and giving them an opportunity to go young. And I could see the Seahawks trading Wilson at that point and then having a couple of bad years while they wait for the quarterback to develop and Pete Carroll calling it quits and leaving.
Yeah, that's why San Francisco's situation this year is so interesting with Lance, because they've got a great team and a young quarterback. That's a formula that's proven to be successful a few different times here in the last 10 years. So we'll see how that goes.
Well, yeah, because if you can have your quarterback making nothing, I mean, even as the 3rd overall pick, he's making a fraction of what other quarterbacks make.
Yeah.
It gives you the opportunity to hold on to some guys that you normally would have had to let walk, or sign another big name.
And so I think that their window is open for like the next 3 or 4 years, just flat out.
The bigger difference, though, is they're still paying Jimmy Garoppolo a ton. And so it's not like they don't have money invested in the cornerback position. When Seattle drafted Russell Wilson and gave him the starting job, he was making 100 or 560 grand that first year against the cap, and that was it. You know what I mean? So, I mean, yeah, I guess they had Flynn, but even when they combined those two, they were still in the bottom, like
under $10 million a year.
Yeah, they're bottom 4 in the league in terms of what they're paying their quarterbacks. And then the next year, when they jettisoned Flynn and brought back Tavares Jackson on a league or near league minimum deal, they were paying their quarterback position nothing, and that led to back-to-back Super Bowl appearances. And
yes, it did.
So the 49ers are in position to do that if they get rid of Garoppolo and
they can. I mean,
use that money elsewhere.
That contract is not a zinger. No. I mean,
they
can jettison that.
They could jettison him any moment. But the other part of it is Lance a guy that's going to come in and own the position and own the team the way Russell Wilson did? I don't know. Of all the quarterbacks not named,
it takes a certain maturity level to do that with a mature team.
I'll say, other than Trevor Lawrence, I think Trey Lance has the highest ceiling of any of the quarterbacks in this draft. Really talented player, all the physical gifts you'd want, great on the run, perfect fit for that offense, all that kind of stuff. But he's also got a fairly low floor. He's going to take some time to work through all the different things that need working through to get him from, playing in the he wasn't in the BCS. He was in the it's not Division I anymore. They've got a different name for it, but yeah, so he was in, a lower division of college up to Super Bowl ready. It's a huge jump for him. I think this year they're in position to be very frustrating for their fans because you can see the talent on the roster and even at quarterback, but then they're not going to win the games they should be winning.
Well, and it's easy to get a guy like that to make some mistakes, if you're defending that, but we'll see. Mm-hmm. I've got one last one. It's a Canary FCSP. So it's at Canary on Twitter. What is your opinion on an increasing number of games played abroad? Would you oppose the 17th game being played abroad to create an even amount of home and away games? What is your take on moving a franchise out of the U.S., possibly into London or Mexico City or something like that?
Okay, so there's 3 different parts to that.
Yes.
I don't have a problem with games being played outside of the U.S. as long as it is done in a way that creates competitive equality.
Or there's a bye week after week. For both teams.
And so, you have situations like Jacksonville's been asked to play London games a lot because they don't fill their stadium. And since they're not going to fill their stadium there, they can fill it They can fill Wembley Stadium instead. That creates a revenue stream that allows them to be financially competitive with the other franchises.
And they're, 5 hours closer to Europe than we are.
Exactly. So I'm okay with that. With the 17th game, I think it does give the league the flexibility to do more of that and play, whether it be Mexico City or London or Berlin would be another place that I think would do well. Or there's been talk of, doing a game in like Shanghai or Tokyo and getting some Asia, Asian cities involved. I think overall, like, it works. And yeah, the fact that there's a 17th game so that everyone has 8 home, 8 away, and 1 international. So no one's losing a home game to have this international game. Sure, go for it. The thing is, growing the brand, growing the revenue for the league, it's good for everybody. It's great for the players because they can earn more. It's good for fans because it's going to give us more streaming services available.
Right.
And
yeah, but you know how this is going to end. There's going to have to be an 18th game. There's no way that the league stays with an uneven schedule. It's just never worked for baseball, football, basketball, whatever. It's always ended up being an
even number.
And so I think this is a short-lived thing, temporary, to kind of move the bar a little bit for the players to adjust. And it's just one of those things I think is probably going to be, within 4 to 8 years, another game will be added. But yeah, I agree. I mean, why not? It is kind of a weird thing. I mean, obviously, I think if you can go back and forth every other year with an extra home game and then not, that makes sense too on a, simplistic level. But for me, I like it. There's just more to talk about. There's an extra game. It kind of adds a little bit more flavor at the end of the year when games are on the line and you've got that extra game. And so you could end up having teams that have 11 wins and not make the playoffs, and it'd just be kind of nutty. But All right, Keith, I think we're ready to switch gears on what we're drinking.
True. I'm gonna while we're opening and pouring, I'm gonna ask you a related question. So, what's your opinion on a Jeff Fisher comeback now that the 17
Mr. 500
the 17 game schedule means he can no longer go 7-9?
Oh, he'd love that. He'd love that personal little. Is that a serious question or
not really? But
yeah. That's hilarious though.
I knew at
Jeff
some point
Fisher.
we'd end up with a 17 game schedule question, and so I had that one ready. That's
funny. Yeah, Mr. 500. He was amazing. He had amazing longevity for
being a mediocre coach.
Yeah, mediocrity. All right. So Keith, which one are you? You've got a hazy going.
I got a hazy going.
My wild card is a hazy, and I'm going to save that one for last.
So your wild card is so you have 2 hazies.
Yes.
Interesting.
Yeah, I know. I'm an interesting guy. All right. So my second one is from the Thomas Hooker Brewing Company in Bloomfield, Connecticut. And it's called #No Filter. And it's New England India Pale Ale. And it's got a really nice, colorful can. And I went onto their website, which is hookerbeer.com. And all the artwork on all the cans is just pretty amazing. It's all like psychedelic and colorful and wavy gravy, and it's pretty cool. And I don't have any idea why I picked this one, because when you go to the store and if anybody's been into a craft beer kind of specialty place where the freezer's like -5 degrees or whatever, and you walk in, you freeze your ass off, and you try to get out of there as quickly as possible. So you just end up kind of grabbing stuff. Yeah. But I just stood there and I just looked at stuff because it's been a while since I've kind of just selectively tried to find some beers I haven't had before. And I think I got frustrated at some point and I just started grabbing a couple things. And this was one of them. And, I looked online and did some research and it looked like it had really good reviews. In fact, it had more stars on what's the website that kind of rates beer, Keith? Bearded or I don't know.
No. I had my phone here. I could just open up the app.
But anyway, it was rated. It had like 4.4 stars higher than the one I just had. And my notes say, hold on, that this is 7% alcohol by volume. It's got Citra and Mosaic hops. It says it's hoppy but smooth. Cheers.
Cheers. Yeah, Citra is the it's the big hop for IPAs these days because it has the most citrus notes. It's got kind of a grapefruity.
That's what I taste. Uh-huh.
A grapefruit flavor profile. Mosaic is one of those that breweries have a hard time getting their hands on because it doesn't have there's not as many growers that grow Mosaic because it's relatively new and so it can be hard to get their hands on. But Freem, who I'm drinking today,
has another Freem one.
Has a Mosaic IPA where it's just Mosaic and nothing else, which is my favorite IPA of all time, like just straight up. But instead, I've got Freem's Hazy IPA, so it's hazy now.
Wait, let me see the labels. Hold it up just a little bit further, up in the air. Talk so that you go on camera.
Okay. This is 6.8%, 35 IBUs, so rather low on the IBU scale for a IPA. But it's also its main hop is Mosaic. It's also got Citra, Eldorado, and Denali. So
wow, nice.
Yeah, it says it's got tropical aromas of clementine, peach, strawberry, mango, papaya, juicy notes of grapefruit, white grape, and whipped citrus.
Wow. So my next one is kind of like that. So this one's character, quote unquote, is tropical fruit juice aroma. Abundant qualities of Mosaic and Citra hops make this unfiltered IPA explode with a tropical fruit juice aroma. Heavy on the aromatics, but light on the bitterness. This brew is a true New England IPA.
Mm-hmm. And so that's one of the things that you'll run into with I don't know if you guys, those of you that are watching this, can see the difference between this, where light goes through and I can actually, kind of see my computer screen if I hold it up, and this one, which is a hazy, and there is just stuff floating around in it.
Yeah. So it's not a Hefeweizen, but it's unfiltered nonetheless.
Yeah. And so, but yeah, the New England style you're going to find with more citrusy fruit kind of flavors. It's not actually from citrus or fruit or anything. It's just from the hops. And so, yeah, so you've got more of that, but less overall IBU. So it's not quite as upfront with the bitterness. And so it's a little smoother. This one is 35 IBUs. It's international bitter units, and this one was 65. So significantly less IBUs for the hazy. And so what we found is that, this is the Northwest style. This is when the IPAs came back into vogue, 15 years ago, it was Northwest breweries that were pushing them. These New England style, the hazy IPAs, came along later, and they were kind of an answer to the Northwest style. The reason why they're called New England styles, because it's pushed by Dogfish Head Brewing and some of the other ones from the New England area. But there are a much mellower bitter, and just a different flavor profile, but they still have that dry hop, hoppiness to them. They're a good beer. They are. Even though I'm a Northwesterner, I'm not against a New England style IPA. I mean, these are still tasty. So
very tasty. All right, Keith. I think we've gotten to the part of the show where it's my turn to ask you questions. And I've got a whole series of football related questions, and then I have a whole series of non-football related questions, and I'll just sprinkle them in, and we'll just go back and forth.
Cool. We can go back and forth, because I have a bunch of questions for you too.
All right, let's just go back and forth, and we'll kind of not race through them, but we're already at 45 minutes. We could stay on for another 45 if you want to, because it's the beer, and
I've got another beer. So
yeah, me too. Yeah. Plus, I've got an unfinished beer over here.
I know. I only drank 2/3 of that one, and I already had to open this one.
First question. Will this be Bobby Wagner's last season with the Seattle Seahawks?
Oh, God, I was hoping you wouldn't ask that. Yes.
Wow. I knew you were going to say that.
I don't want it to be. I think it's, in the end, I'd love to see him in Seattle for 2 more seasons. I think he should be in Seattle for 2 more seasons, but he's got a $20 million price tag next year.
Yes, he does.
You don't pay a linebacker $20 million.
Yeah, you know what though? It's all relative, and I'll tell you why that might not matter. Cap's going up. We got some space, not a tremendous amount of space. We still need to extend Jamal Adams and a few others, but he might be able to take a smaller cap hit into next year. Who knows?
If they can extend him a year and take his salary from 20 million back down into 17, which is what he's going to be making this coming year.
That's what I was just going to say. Between 17 and 20, Keith,
and give him
for that level of performance.
Give him another year on his deal. Let him have 2 more years in Seattle. God, I would do that every day. But I just don't think he goes in. I don't think he goes into next year with a $20 million.
So is he going to be 31 this year?
Yes.
So at some point, you got to look at the value ratio versus performance. You just do. That's just the way you run a football team. That's the bottom line. There used to be a lot of team loyalty back in the 50s, 60s, early 70s, mid 80s even. And then free agency hit and really took over. And then money came into the league. And the loyalty stuff kind of was secondary to winning and to building the best teams possible and so forth. So you see a lot of players at the tail end of their careers not stay with the teams that they came up with, which is unfortunate, but it's just one of those deals. The game's adapted, and that's the way it is. So a player like Bobby Wagner at $17 million of cap is, that's 5-6% of your cap, at least, right? Mm-hmm. And so you've got to really pay attention to that figure and understand if you're going to get that return, that's great. If you're not, and he's at the tail end of a contract, that might be the moment that you need to decide that you could move on. It wouldn't surprise me next year if he's extended. It wouldn't surprise me next year if he's traded at, during the draft or, earlier in the process, because he's got value, and he's, if somebody was willing to do a 2-year extension on that 1-year deal, he could have a 3-year contract, have some more guaranteed money added to that bottom line that would take him into, close to being 35 years old. He might jump on that deal, and it might be better for all parties to do that. And Seattle could get some return while they can, and Bobby Wagner gets another contract and plays out. It's an unfortunate deal. I mean, and I say that without any emotion, just pure football facts, but when you add the emotion back into it,
I'd hate it.
he's going to be on the wall of honor and Ring of Honor, and
he's a Hall of Famer.
He's a Hall of Famer. The whole thing, right? The whole package.
Straight up.
Bobby
And
Wagner.
that's not a homer statement to say he's a Hall of Famer. He has been, what is it now, a 4-time first team All-Pro, 6-time overall All-Pro because he was the second team for a couple of years. He led the NFL in tackles for 3 years in a row. He is one of the all-time greats.
Yeah. And even now, slightly diminished, still top 3.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. Without a doubt. And so, and that's the thing, is he's still top 3 at his position. And you add in what an awesome presence he is in the locker room during training camp.
Yeah, invaluable.
I'm telling you, he's worth a lot.
Yes.
$20 million is a lot to pay a middle linebacker.
But not for a young team. But
if you get that, if you have a young team that needs leadership, and you can, especially if you can get that number down to 16 or so, you keep him on the roster. Absolutely. He's worth it.
Yeah, and there's ways to work those deals that give Seattle at least one more year if they really wanted it. Mm-hmm. They could make it happen. All right. You go. What's your
so I've got 4 questions for you, rapid fire. Right? So you just got to give me an answer. Ready? Okay. Favorite current Seahawk?
Russell Wilson.
Favorite current non-Seahawk?
Rapid. I'm going to come back to that.
So much for rapid fire, Bill.
Yeah, I really like Larry Fitzgerald, but he might not play this year.
He's not even on a roster.
Yeah. I'm going to go back to the Derrick Henry thing.
I was going to say,
I really,
answer for you. I'm going to say Derrick Henry.
Before the Pete Carroll era, I really hadn't fallen in love with the running back position. It was kind of one of those deals. I really got excited if there was a dynamic player once in a while, but I never identified with the smash mouth kind of thing that Marshawn Lynch brought to the team. And ever since then, I'm hungry to kind of have that again, have that sort of player. And yeah, he's a Seahawk. He's just not in a Seahawk uniform.
So, favorite non-current, non-star Seahawk player?
Non-current, non-star. Oh, you mean a guy like Dan Dornick or something like that?
Just anyone who wasn't a star. Like, you can't pick
Pete Metzlers,
Jim Zorn or
Tice,
or Cortez Kennedy. Non-current, non-star.
Yeah, I'm a Joe Nash guy. I equate the position in the same way as the running back conversation we just had. It's one of those things where a guy brings a lunch pail. I really admire guys that are underdogs.
You look up lunch pail players, like NFL lunch player in the dictionary, you will see a picture of Joe Nash.
Yeah,
just straight up.
I mean, a guy like that comes prepared every day, has literally worked his ass off every season he's been in the league because somebody's always trying to take his job because he's an undrafted free agent, smaller than he should be, slower, whatever. But somehow every year he just gets the job done, ends up, playing like 16 years in the league with one team. What? Mm-hmm. It's crazy.
No one ever outworked him.
No.
Just ever.
And I just dug that. I mean, that's, I'm not trying to, talk about myself or whatever, but that's really the kind of play, that exemplified the way that I wanted to play, that I admired and wanted to kind of do that. And so, I mean, for me, nobody else is probably going to bring up Joe Nash, but that totally exemplifies the way that football should be played, in my opinion.
Yeah. The correct answer to that is Max Strong.
Yeah.
Okay. So the favorite non-current, non-star, non-Seahawk player.
Jeez. You're brutal. Boy. I don't know. I don't know.
But yeah.
Yeah.
It's
I
someone
like Matt Judon, something like that. For the same, I'm kind of that way. This is
but
just
he's
kind of
current.
I thought you said
I said
non-star.
non-current, non-star, non-Seahawk.
Wow. Interesting. Non-star. Damn. How am I supposed to remember guys that were like, not Mean Joe Green? How about like, he was a star. I was going to say Carl Eller. Really liked the way that he played defensive end position for the Purple People Eaters back in the day.
What about Christian Okoye?
Running back
for Kansas City. He was
kind of
was Derrick Henry before Derrick Henry was born, until he met Steve Atwater.
Yeah, that's funny.
Steve Atwater of the Denver Broncos, safety. One of the first guys I remember just trying to decapitate guys from the safety position. And
he was a vicious player.
I remember him coming up and meeting Christian Okoye in the hole. And Okoye, who was known for running people over and just being the most physical back in the league at the time, hit Atwater and fell backwards. And Atwater was standing over him. And Okoye was essentially at that moment done.
Wow.
Like that play. And
that was like the Cam Chancellor hit on Vernon Davis.
Yeah. Vernon Davis was
never the same.
He is never was the same guy. Yep.
And I don't blame him. I would have stayed down on the mat for the count on that one.
Cam Chancellor tried to kill him. Like there was
Vernon Davis was a hell of a player.
Oh, he was an incredible player.
And Cam just ruined him. And that was a legit hit too. The one where you can see the sweat beads fly off him in that instant of contact.
And the thing is, it was a legal hit.
Yes, he got flagged for hitting him with the helmet under the chin, and
but he didn't.
It showed that he did not.
He didn't. The shoulder pad hit him there, but the ball got there first. Cam got there second, and he was never the same player after that.
All right,
they should have charged Cam with attempted murder after that.
All right, we've asked one question so far, Keith. We have to go. We have to get through these. So that took us.
I asked 4.
7 minutes. What? Oh, you did. You did ask. So it's my turn.
Yeah.
All right. Question: does the Daryl Taylor experiment at strong side linebacker work to perfection this season and make us all completely forget KJ Wright?
No.
Yeah, good answer. But talk to me about Daryl Taylor and his opportunity for a minute.
Oh, he's got the opportunity. I mean, his size and athleticism, he's going to be scary at that position because he's got the athleticism to play the position, but he's so much bigger than guys should be to be a linebacker. And so he's going to hit people. He's going to hurt people. They're going to be afraid of having him line up on the opposite side, but he's got the athleticism to do it. This isn't like,
he played in college at 264 or 266, and he's coming in. He wants the team wants him, and he wants to be in camp at 259 as a linebacker.
As a 6'4". Linebacker.
Yeah. Normally you just don't see linebackers that size. I mean, 6'4". Normally you're going to see linebackers between 6 and 6'3". Normally you're going to see them in the range of 235 to 248, maybe.
He's coming in at 6'4", just about 260.
Yeah.
He's big. He's a guy. He looks like a guy who should have his hand on the ground.
Yeah. You're definitely not going to want to meet him in the middle of the between the numbers if you're an offensive player.
Oh yeah, him coming up into a hole and hitting anyone. I mean, he's going to outweigh any running back in the league, including Derrick Henry, who's
240, 238, something like that.
Yeah. So he's going to outweigh him by 20 pounds.
Oh,
and to
the
come
collisions. I'm just having this conversation. I'm kind of getting excited about football.
Can you imagine like Alvin Kamara catching the ball out of the backfield and looking to turn upfield and getting met by a 260-pound linebacker who's got you by 70 pounds?
Yeah.
He's going to kill people. Do I think that he'll make us forget about KJ Wright?
Nobody's going to make us forget about KJ Wright. Not the way that he played. It's just one of those deals. He was a very unique player.
He is too damn good to forget about. He was on the list of the most underrated players in the entire NFL for like 8 straight years.
Yeah, he made our list when we did a show earlier this year for sure.
Yeah, and he absolutely. He was a fantastic player. I say was because he's not on a roster right now. Absolutely love KJ Wright, and Daryl Taylor can be fantastic and not make us forget about how much KJ Wright was
this season. Yeah, Daryl Taylor has his own opportunity to write his own book, but this year, no.
I mean, KJ Wright was the screen whisperer. You throw a screen to his side of the field, you're just stupid. Like that. That's really what it comes down to.
Well, it was a 5-yard loss.
Yeah,
I mean, it got to be pretty common where he would disrupt any screen attempt.
He was in the backfield. So good against the screen. The Seahawks didn't see a lot of screen passes because teams weren't dumb enough to risk a 5-yard loss because KJ was so damn good at sniffing them out.
All right. I'm going to ask a question that's going to require you to really think about your job.
Oh, no.
Who has more total yards this season? Total yards. Rashad Penny or Dwayne Eskridge?
Oh, damn, that's a good question. I'm going to say Dwayne Eskridge. And the reason why I'm going to say it, he's going to return kicks.
You think he's going to be our number 1 kick returner?
No, I think he's going to be our number 2 kick returner, but he's going to get enough kick return yards to make that factor in and give it to him. But that is not a fair question because that's hard.
Well, because it's interesting because you got to take 3 things into account. You've got to look at the positions and you've got to look at the way that they're probably going to be used. And then you've got to look at Shane Waldron and how he wants to use running backs out of the backfield and all that kind of stuff. So Rashad Penny's got a unique opportunity this year if he can stay healthy. I really
does. But Eskridge also, I mean, receivers are in a position to
exactly.
He's the third receiver.
He could get team. so many check down completions that he could end up racking up 60 to 80 receptions as a rookie.
And he's so good run after the catch. So you're going to get him. It's a 5-yard reception, but he turns it into a 15-yard game.
Exactly.
And he's going to do that often enough that it's going to be hard. Penny's also, even as the number 2 back, is going to get a pile of yards if he still stays healthy.
Yeah, and that's the key. And we're going to be talking about this all year. If Rashad Penny stays healthy, just as he did a couple of years ago, he has an opportunity to push Carson for reps. And, if he could get 10 touches a game, whether they come by carries or receptions, he could have 70 yards, total yards every game, which is going to challenge potentially Eskridge as far as the yardage. Now, if you factor kick returns and so forth into that, maybe not. But
you said total yards.
Yeah, I did say total yards. Absolutely. Yep. All right. The next question, and then it's your turn for a couple. Okay. Who are our starting 2 cornerbacks by week 10?
Oh, I thought week 1. I think I've got it. By week 10.
17-game season. So down the stretch.
I know.
Who's the team going to go with?
I'll stick to the same 2 guys I would have said week 1. DJ Reed and Aleka Witherspoon. But I got to tell you, Trey Brown's going to be he's going to have a chance to unseat one of those 2.
So between between those two guys and Trey Brown and Ugo Amadi and Marquise Blair
and Trey Flowers
and Trey, there's some guys there, depending on injuries or lack of performance or just giving a guy an opportunity, there could be some shuffling going on all the time, depending on matchup dependent and whatnot. It's an exciting year. There's a lot to be excited about on the defense, and those guys we just talked about right there in that group are just kind of part of that. Because if two or three of those names can emerge to be like really quality starters, not necessarily Pro Bowl level, but right below that, this team is really looking solid.
Yeah. I gotta say, I answered that question because you said week 10. I'm like, oh man, that's hard because Aleko Witherspoon's going to start. I think he's going to start week 1 and be good. But based on his career, is he still healthy week 10? And
More confident.
If he's not, who's the starter?
Trey Flowers is probably primed.
And I'd want to say Trey Brown
or a midseason trade. I mean, that position is kind of iffy on, it depends on how Trey Flowers does in camp and if the team feels like they're confident in him. If they are, he stays on the roster, he's ready to go, he comes in, he plays, and we don't see a big fall off and life goes on. If they don't see what they want in camp, it could be a situation where he's moved for a 7th round pick or released, or we go with him, but mid-season, we transition. And so a lot of stuff could go on depending on what washes out. So, okay.
All right. So we're going to need to pause. Let's go ahead and pause our recordings everywhere because a bathroom break. All right. So 2 questions. Let's start with a football question, and then we'll move on from there. So there's been a lot of talk in the last couple of years about the overtime rules and possibly changing them and doing things like that. If you were the commish, how would you change the overtime rules to make them better?
God, this is a recycled question.
Remember, I told you that I was going to go back.
I remember.
I was going to go back. There was a couple of questions from the 100th show that I was going to bring back, and that is one of them.
That is funny. I don't know. How did I answer it before? I want the same answer. So right now, you know what? It's just so chancy anyway. The coin flip, the possession first, if you don't get a touchdown, the other team gets a chance. I think it's pretty decent. I mean, it's never going to be optimal or work out for every team the way that they want it to every time. That's the point. It's sudden death. It's overtime. It's like you got to do or die. And how else do you do it where it makes sense and it appears to be even in a way that is fair, but still provides an element of chance and opportunity? I don't know.
I honestly, when they switched it to if you don't get a touchdown, the other team gets a chance, I liked it. I say leave it. I don't want to go to what the college, the NCAA rules have been. I don't think that's better. If you're gonna do something like that, move them back out of field goal range, put them at the 50, and then you go back and forth that way. But don't put them at the 20 or the 30 or wherever they do it from now, where you're inside field goal range. It's too close.
Yeah, you've got to have a semi drive. I mean, listen, if you're gonna line them up inside whatever, don't have a 15-minute overtime. Have a 5-minute deal or a 7-minute where each team gets a possession and you've got 4 downs and you make it happen and then the other team gets a chance until the first team scores, you're done. You could do it that way where you just have 4 shots.
Or just remove field goals from the equation.
Yeah, just force teams to make a big play. That would give Seattle a kind of an advantage. You throw up Colby Parkinson and DK Metcalf.
It's 1st and 10 from the 10. 1st and goal from the 10.
God, that'd be exciting.
And no field goal.
Yeah. What would be more advantageous, to have a quarterback like Russell Wilson, who is a known clutch player, or a guy that's a winger that can just throw the ball and fit it into windows? Now, Russell Wilson can too, but he's a little bit more dynamic. What's more advantageous, to have a quarterback that's kind of a semi-dual threat with a clutch?
I'm a firm believer in mobile quarterbacks down by the red zone, and forcing teams to defend the width as well as the depth, because when you get that close, there's such a small area of space that has to be defended relative to like normal, right? You're out at the 30. There's just so much depth of the field. There's just so much space. But when you get down to the 10, everything compresses. And if you force teams to defend the entire width of the field on both sides and the depth to the back of the end zone, which a running quarterback can force you to do, I think it creates an advantage. So so you just don't want to change it. Let's just stay with what it is. It works well enough. I mean, it doesn't impact any single one team more than once or twice a season. And I think that given that, I think that you just stay with something that works relatively well for most teams in most situations, and you just kind of have to leave it. And the thing is, if you are a team that loses the toss and loses the game because you gave up a touchdown, your answer was, don't give up a touchdown.
There you go.
Get a stop. At least force them to do a field goal to give your offense a chance. If you can't do that, you didn't deserve to win. All right. So, and with that, it's time for us to move on to beer number 3. So it's our wild card.
Behind door number 3.
I have this from Beverage Brewing Company in Portland.
It's not a frame.
No, it's a wild card, so of course it's not a frame. But it is their official anniversary beer. It is a double IPA.
I almost grabbed a double, and I almost grabbed a triple, and then I thought, no, I'm going to be safe, and I'm going to grab a single, and that's what I did.
So Beverage only been around since 2014. They're as far as breweries go, new thing. They're local to the Portland area, and of course I'm in Vancouver, so I'm in a suburb. But whatever. Very good brewery. They do some really good stuff.
What was the brewery again?
It's called Beverage.
Yeah,
it's
don't recognize that.
BARLIC.
Nice. How long have they been around?
2014 was the year.
Cool.
And so this is their anniversary beer. I think it's called Death Before Macro.
And is it a hazy or West Coast style?
It's supposed to be a West Coast style, but it is, it's an official anniversary beer.
Nice.
And it is all sorts it's a double IPA. It's got Strata, Amarillo, and Chinook hops. So it's going to have some of those piney notes, but also a lot of citrus to it. So there's that sound of me opening it. I'm going to pour it now.
Wow.
What are you drinking?
So I came equipped with a Tombstone Brewery Company Strata single hop IPA.
So it's a Strata.
It's from Tombstone, Arizona.
Have you ever been to Tombstone?
Not yet.
It's not that far. It's not that far southeast of Tucson. And it is, the home of all the
Corral.
legends and OK Corral and all of that. And today it is a massive tourist trap.
Yeah. That's
and nothing else.
Yeah, I haven't. I've passed through regionally close twice, and I just haven't made it there.
All right. So this is.
So mine is a hazy.
Mine is not. Mine is very clear. Nice. Look at that amber color.
Wow. I'm very envious of that.
very little head.
Sweet.
That's a fantastic looking beer. I'm comparing that to my my first beer, since I now have two partials still, and it's darker, and it's actually clearer than even my Northwest style from Frame.
This was my 70 plus, and it is. I'm not going to tell you what it looks like, and and this, it looks like, I'm not going to tell you what it looks like after you've taken a bunch of drugs. And this is my new one, and it kind of looks like apple cider a little bit.
Yeah, that's really hazy.
Yeah, it is hazy, very hazy.
If I didn't know this was an IPA, based on the can it came from, I would guess this was a Vienna style, or maybe a Marzen, depending on, it's fairly close.
So mine tastes like a bitter back of a closet, like danky kind of.
Oh,
does that make sense to you?
Well, yeah. I mean, that's that's the newer realm of the IPAs, is to go.
Oh, interesting.
And is, in fact, the
dank kind of not necessarily right moldy. Not mold is not the word I'm trying to say. I'm trying to, not stale, but wet. Like when you smell something that's been wet for a while, it's kind of danky.
Well, that's the thing, is dank is the adjective that's used to describe that style of IPA.
You're kidding. Really? I just kind of lucked into that.
So that worked really well. Interesting.
Yeah, no, it is. I mean, it is. I'm going to have to just kind of keep sipping on it a little bit, but that first sip, it's kind of a weird thing for me, because I'm not used to it.
It's not my favorite. It's not that. I get why they're popular, but it's not the style that I go to. If I'm going in an IPA direction, I look for either a single hop mosaic or a New England style. Those, because it's the lower IBUs. This one, on the other hand, is 8%, and it's got that piney. I wouldn't say pine though. I would say spruce undertones to it, because of which hop did we say that was? Amarillo. But it's also got the Chinook hops, which have a little bit of that too. And the end result, it's got the upfront bitter, but it's not as strong as the first one I had. It mellows out quickly and then finishes with that kind of evergreen pine smell. It's
that's what I had with the 70 plus, I believe. Yeah. So this is interesting, because the description on the can doesn't fit at all with what it tastes like. So this says, this hazy, juicy IPA showcases the finest strata hops we could find. That may be true. Bursting with passion fruit. I don't get any sense of passion fruit. Candied peaches. I definitely do not taste any peaches. And apricot. Man, I'm hungry for some of those fruits right now. We think you'll be amazed at how much complexity can come from a single hop variety. You're right. I am amazed. Here's the situation. It's not bad. It's not bad. I want to tell you a little bit about Strata, though. And you probably know, but who knows? Born in 2009, Strata is the prodigy of an open pollinated peril located at the Oregon State University Experimental Field in Corvallis. From the get-go, this hop was out to impress, but between its strong disease resistance and vigorous growing habit and its complex layers of aroma, as it was known, as it was being experimented on, X331 rose to the top. Strata hops. So interesting. I mean,
I'm not against Strata hops. Citra is like the big name in IPAs right now, and I'm not a huge fan of it simply because I like the I like the flavors that aren't citrus, right? I don't the grapefruit and that I like others. I want it to be more complex than that. And so so many breweries have gone down the Citra bandwagon that I'm looking for something else. Strata is relatively new. Been um, it's been out for a little bit, but breweries are finally figuring out how to use it right, and they're making some good beers with it.
Yeah, there was some for example, I believe the Old Nation Brewing Company. If you go onto their website, and it may have been the first one, the hookerbeer.com site. One of those two had a coffee milk stout that looked really interesting.
Oh, that sounds good. That's my typical beer.
And that's what I was thinking. That there were they had 16 beers that they canned, and they had a whole other list of beers that were on tap only that went out to bars and so forth. But yeah, that coffee milk stout, and they had a few other ones that had your name written all over it too. Some sort of moose drool stuff, and
moose drool's pretty good. That's out of Montana.
Yeah, stuff. I mean, it wasn't moose drool, but it was caribou snot or something like that.
Yeah, same idea.
Right. So let's get back to some questions.
So
let me. So I had 3 questions written down in a row that have literally already been asked. So I'm going to skip over those. I'm going to skip to a fun question.
Let me ask one. Okay. What is your go-to adult beverage? Because it's not beer.
Yeah, no, it isn't. I do have beer. I always have a little bit of beer in the refrigerator, and once in a while I'll dip into one. And I have some seltzer in there too for Megan when she comes over. And the beer typically, honestly, will last in there. And I do have some IPAs in there right now. But like I'll go to Costco and I'll buy the 18 pack or whatever it is, 24, and that thing will last literally 6 months. I just am not a huge beer drinker, and it just kind of sits in there for a little while. I'm a red wine guy. Like 3 or 4 times a week, I'll have a glass or 2 of like Italian red blend or Napa Valley red blend or Eastern Washington Cabernet Merlot blend. Or
when you come up, Freem has a they called it a Druf Rouge, which is a beer made with, I think it's Merlot. It might be Cabernet, but it's one of the dark red wine grapes. And so it's got that wine taste.
Interesting.
But it's a beer. And it's also like 11%. So
well, you and I are going to have to spend a little bit more time together than, if we have these sorts of adventures planned. Okay, question for you. I got a fun question I just read. I just got to ask you this because it's just, I don't know why I wrote this down. It's just kind of crazy. Is Shane Waldron the future head coach of the Seattle Seahawks?
Oh, crap.
Yes. That's way out there, I know. But if he's successful and Russell Wilson is the quarterback, he could write his own ticket.
And Russell Wilson is the quarterback, it's going to be a race between him getting a head coaching job elsewhere and Pete Carroll retiring.
That's why I wrote this question down, because I could see in the future that this could possibly be a scenario that we have to pay attention to.
Oh, I had yet to even consider that. That is a fantastic question, Bill. I would say yes, because the timeline lines up. Because usually you have to be in a place.
Keith.
You've got to be in a place for 2 years, and so it gets to a point where I think
Pete Carroll's under contract until 2025.
Yeah, I think Pete Carroll has 3 years left. I think that if Waldron comes in and is successful for this year and the year after, he's going to start getting options. And at that point,
somebody's going to have to tell him in the background.
they're
The
gonna
job
tell him,
is yours
yeah.
when Pete leaves.
They're gonna tell, it's gonna be like who's the guy
Seifert,
in?
Seifert
No,
taking over for Bill Walsh.
no, I was thinking more along the lines of Bill Belichick and the offensive coordinator they have there now, who used to be the head coach in Denver.
Yeah. Mick something or other.
I've had too many.
McDaniel.
Yeah,
McDaniel.
there you go. I've had too many of these beverages to pull that name out of my head.
I'm still sharp, man. I still got it.
Uh, but yeah, it's one of those situations where he keeps turning down head coaching jobs because he knows the job's his in New England when Belichick retires, and I think it's going to be a point where it's going to be like,
Yeah, to
yeah,
me, that's a little short-sighted. I mean,
you
at this
can
point, when
you
when
can
you
go.
jettison Brady, New England just becomes another NFL ball club. So to me,
Yeah,
that's kind of weird. Just sit around for a job that Belichick might not relinquish for 5 years or whatever.
yeah, I think Belichick's closer to leaving than
I would have thought if Belichick was going to leave, it would be coincided with Brady. All right,
go
go
I
ahead.
think Belichick wants to
Reestablish himself.
He wants to establish that he's more than Brady. Okay,
Yep.
So I've got questions that have nothing to do with the Seahawks. So, would you rather be the star player of a terrible team?
I have the exact same question for you, only different.
Or warm the bench for on a championship roster?
What was your question again?
Would you rather be the star player for a terrible team or warm the bench on a championship roster?
Wow. Me versus team. That's a classic question. In typical Bill fashion, I've got two answers. Half of me, literally half of me, I swear to God, it's this way. This is the way my mind works. Half of me would be the team guy and would want that championship and contribute in any way that I could, in any capacity, to get the team to that championship. That would be, I could understand how that would be actualized and gratifying. On the other hand, being a star player is fantastic. Like, people want to be near you and want to be mentored by you. And you are the guy, you're the man on that roster, because you're the best player on the roster. And that gives you unique opportunities, not only with that team, but into the future. And there's no question that you could transition that into other opportunities down the road that are just as gratifying as a championship by a team. So it depends. It's so funny. It just sounds so wishy-washy, even to myself.
When I asked that question, what came to mind was, where am I in my career?
Yeah, exactly. I said it's going to depend on how old you are and where you're at.
The first 5 years, I'd rather be the star, because there's a lot of financial freedom that gets developed with being a star, and name recognition, and there's a lot of benefits.
So here's a really stupid, silly equation for you. Mm-hmm. Not an equation, but a kind of an equalization of this sort of thing, only in a very micro way. So in junior high, I was the dude, right?
In junior high,
I was the guy. I caught over a dozen touchdown passes, and I also was the running back, and I also was the punter, and I also was the defensive end, and I ended up being voted athlete of the year, all that kind of stuff, right? So that I got a flavor of what that's like, even at 14 years old or whatever. It's pretty heady. And then when I got to high school, I wasn't that dude anymore. I played varsity, so I was a 4-year varsity guy, but I didn't play. It was a humbling experience. I was very much humbled by that, and I was a team guy, and I played it mostly from the bench. I played some special team snaps, and that was it. And we went to the championship game in the Kingdom. So I lived out this very same scenario. And so I can tell you for a fact, that it was better being the guy in junior high. It was better being the guy. Just, a little inside information there. All right. I got a question for you.
Go for it.
Other than home brewing, what other hobby would you consider really getting into, Keith? Ham radio?
No.
Well, yeah, you mentioned blowing things up a couple weeks ago.
I do blow things up for science. That's part of my job, though. That's not a hobby. Not that I would give it up. I do woodworking. I built some cabinets.
You and I would get along in that respect. I've done
and do some of that. I do enjoy that. It is time intensive in a way that I don't have. But I've done some of it. I have the tools for it. I would love to continue to work in that realm, but I just don't have the time to commit to multiple hobbies.
So I just thought of another question.
Okay.
So you're kind of involved in 3 separate areas in your life, other than being a family man and a husband. You've got a teaching career.
Mm-hmm.
You've got a business career. Yeah. Where you guys are doing some business stuff, and then you've got the podcast. If you could choose one of those 3 things that you could do full time and get compensated for it well enough to be the only thing you really needed to do, which one would you choose?
Well, I'm already compensated enough for the teaching part to have it be the only thing that I do. I do the other 2 things because I want to. I run the business because it makes my wife happy, and she's the veterinarian. We run a vet practice, and I do what I need to do to keep, I pay all the bills and deal with taxes and staffing, and I'm the practice manager. That's my title, and I do that because it's what she needs, and I really, really enjoy it, and it's a lot of fun. And ultimately, long term, I'm probably more likely to do that than continue teaching. But I already get compensated for the teaching part in a way that, because a few years ago, there was a big strike. I don't know if you remember, but we spent, a couple of weeks on strike, and that was fun. I say that in the exact opposite meaning of the word fun. But the end result of it was that our compensation package went north, far beyond what I ever expected to get paid in teaching. And so I do get compensated well. And so ultimately, I would say those 2 things would be, they're both going to be there. The teaching already is. The business is going to be profitable to a point where at some point I won't have to teach. I can just do the business stuff. But I will say that the podcast stuff would be fun in a way the other 2 aren't. Because it to me, this is akin to being having a local radio show, like being KJR if you're in Seattle, or one of those, and having my own show, or it wouldn't be my own because you're here too, Bill, but having our own show, and just being able to do what we wanted with it. And then you're going to pay me for this? And you want me to say no? Sorry, that's not going to happen. There's something about it which is just,
it's a natural fun. It's kind of one of those natural things where you just you don't have to work at it. It just is. It's
just fun. I really enjoy what we do. For those of you listening, like, this isn't something that Bill and I do where we get a YouTube and whatever. They're not paying us for this. We do it for you guys. We do it for ourselves. And this is my way of getting
announcements to come, though.
There are announcements to come.
Announcements to come.
We'll tease that and not tell you what they are. But this is, I get to get together with a really close friend and talk Seahawk football for an hour and a half every week, no matter what. and I freaking love it. And I do it entirely for that reason
Yeah,
and
me
not
too.
for anything else. And if you want to pay me to continue to do what we've already been doing now for 235 shows, I will continue to do that. If you don't want to pay me for it and just want me to continue to do it as a hobby, I'm going to continue to do that anyway, because I just really enjoy it.
So this would be a good time to ask you about that second opportunity.
What second opportunity?
The national, the other show. The other show. Yeah.
Are we going to actually say anything about that on air or not
today?
Yeah,
we can.
No,
so
let's just leave it right here where we're having this conversation and people are listening, and everyone's going to be going, "What the hell are they talking about?"
Yeah.
And we're going to go, "Oh, too bad. You're going to have to wait and keep coming."
Yeah, we should wait. We should wait. Yeah.
So you've been to,
there's some opportunities though in the background that Keith and I have been working on that we're excited to share. We just have to timing wise. Yep.
So you've been to games in Glendale, right?
I have not yet, actually.
You've not.
I went through the pandemic last year, Keith, and I landed the year prior, and it was one of those deals where it didn't happen for me.
Are you planning on going to a game?
I actually have tickets this year, actually already to a single game with a friend. So. Okay,
because I've got questions about what it's like attending games in Glendale, and is it different than when I was there in Glendale?
Well, I'll let you know.
Attending games.
The game isn't until January of 2022 because the season goes into I think it's January 8th or something like that. It's the last game of the season.
Yeah, the season is a week longer, so it goes a week later.
Yeah. Okay, I have a question for you.
Okay.
2 questions. You're in the veterinary practice.
Mm-hmm.
What is your favorite breed of, not a feline, but a canine?
Ooh.
Temperament, size, whatever.
My favorite breed of canine. And you're not going to let me just go mutt, are you? Because honestly,
unless you've got a really good reason. I mean,
that's my favorite breed of canine. Is just it's
a mix.
A mixed breed. Purebreds tend to have
what size?
Mid-size.
Like mid-size, 40 pounds, whatever.
Yeah, 40, 50, somewhere in there. Purebreds tend to have genetic disorders, and that tends to be a problem, whereas mixed breeds don't, and they end up just being awesome dogs for the most part.
I think every dog is awesome as long as you treat them well, and they
absolutely.
There's just a lot of love there. So
if you're gonna force me out of the cop-out answer, which is just mutt, you would never have heard me said this 10 years ago, but I really like pitties. Pit bulls. 10 years ago, I would have been like, you know what? They're involved in all these attacks on people, and
I just saw an attack yesterday.
They're super aggressive
on a pillow.
And why?
on YouTube, and this dog had literally destroyed its its lay down mat. That was a stuffed pillow, and the stuffing was just everywhere, and the dog was laying upside down, wagging its tail bashfully as it was like, "I did it, but don't hurt me."
Yep. Like I said, 10 years ago, I would have been like, "No, they're too aggressive," and blah blah blah, and honestly, that would have been a really ignorant statement on my behalf. I got to know some pitties through the clinic, and they are, if given the right family, they are the most just emotional, compassionate, sweetest dogs in the history of the world. Give them the wrong family and they're the biggest assholes ever, but in the right family, they are so nice and so just affectionate, and I freaking love them. So if I have to pick a pure breed, I'm going to go in that direction. I'm going to go pitties. I know what yours is because you have like 4 of them.
I know. It's crazy. Doodle Central, right?
Your Bernedoodles.
Yeah. Okay, I have more questions. I have a lot more questions, actually. It'd be awesome if we could get through them because they're fun. How about you? You got a question?
Oh, I've got a million questions. Most of mine that are left are the would you rather type. So,
Yeah. I've got some football stuff, but it's a little bit more fun kind of getting to know you. So
would you rather have a small house with a fantastic view or a large house that just has neighbors and nothing
yeah,
to look at?
I would take the small house with the fantastic view any day. And there's never really been a time in my life where I would have chosen differently.
Mm-hmm.
I've been blessed enough to kind of have a few of, different types. Currently in a home right now with a fantastic view.
Your view, I've only seen a couple of pictures that you shared with me. Your view is phenomenal. Like, I'm just straight up jealous.
Yeah,
That is
it's
nice.
crazy. Like I have this like there's a volcano mountain that's right out my backyard, plus
Yeah,
a
it is.
distant, I have like a 50-mile view in more than 180-degree direction. I mean, it's just kind of wild. The storms alone. So the last 3 nights we've had monsoons, and those things roll in, and I'm on the top of this hill in a valley, and it just creates this vortex. So that the storms come in off the McDowell Mountains and points north and come through the North Valley of Phoenix and shoot through this gap that goes from valley floor level up to probably maybe the peak that's outside my house, maybe like 2,500 feet, something like that, maybe. But there's a valley that's created right there, and the wind just whips right through it, and it's kind of fun, actually. Other than the lounge chair that literally got lifted up off the air and flew into the pool and sank to the bottom. That was cool. All right. Couple questions.
Go for it.
A couple rapid fire here. Who's a better player now?
Are they real rapid fire,
Yeah.
or when I ask
Yeah.
you rapid fire questions?
No, rapid fire. Ready, set, go. Who's a better player, DK Metcalf or DeAndre Hopkins right now?
DeAndre Hopkins.
Bad answer. Will Matthew Stafford win or lose more games in 2021?
When?
Could be a bad answer. Who would you rather have on your team? Chris Carson or Cam Akers?
Cam Akers.
Will San Francisco reemerge this season with an under-over of 12 wins?
Under. No.
All right. Two questions that will make you stop and think for a minute, and then you got free reign. Which event in history, if you could be present at, which event would it be and why?
Any event?
Like, you don't want to die, so you don't want to be at like the Alamo or whatever, but if you could witness something that could give you a perspective that you couldn't otherwise have unless you were there.
Completely open-ended.
I know. I could say between the years 1200 and 1920.
That's not helpful.
Wouldn't it be cool to sit in the Senate in Athens and, watch those guys, talk about stuff? I mean, stuff like that would be interesting to me.
Yeah, I think of that.
Or watching Michelangelo lay on his back painting the Sistine Chapel.
Or to,
have a conversation with him.
The Constitutional Convention in in the 1780s, after the Articles of Confederation turned out to be a failure.
Yeah. How about sitting on the couch when Albert Einstein came up with the theory of relativity?
That would be fun. I'd be there. Or the other one that came to mind was being there when the Emancipation Proclamation was read to in Texas to the slaves 3 years, or I think it was 3 years after it was actually given, and the final.
Really, I did not know that.
The final slaves were finally freed in Texas, and it's what Juneteenth celebrates, like being there that moment. and seeing the final set of
glorious ending.
Yeah, just the freedom of and just being able to see that would be,
those are great.
That would be an absolutely meaningful, like, oh my God, I'd love to see it kind of thing.
At least you didn't pick like the hangings in Nuremberg or something like that. That would be kind of weird.
No thanks.
Okay. The second part, which deceased person, and you've heard this before, which deceased person in history would you enjoy a long, meaningful conversation with, and why?
Carl Sagan. And
nice.
The reasons would be obvious. I have a physics degree. He's the most prominent astrophysicist in the history of the world.
Well, he certainly popularized it.
Yeah. And yeah, that's the end of my story.
He was a deep thinker. Very deep thinker. Was. They went outside the box.
Mm-hmm.
The Cosmos, the original Cosmos book was done in two forms. And it was in a regular sized hardcover. It was in a paperback originally. Later on it was worthless. But they also made this large picture book that was about, yay size. But one year my Aunt Lois knew how much I really loved astronomy and space and exploration and physics. And she bought that for me.
Mm-hmm.
That was awesome. All right, Keith, you're up.
And
we got 10 minutes or so.
What's your favorite Phoenix area restaurant?
Interesting. Taco Madera. It's a sophisticated Mexican dining place where you go for like birthdays, because this place is not cheap. But the food is unreal. Like the flavor profiles that you get just in pork tacos, carnitas tacos, or anything else is just like you never really get anywhere else. It's pretty amazing, and the drink list is premier.
Nice.
There's a hole in the wall place that is outstanding, and it's Valley Luna. And it's on off Cave Creek Road and Greenway, not too far from where I'm at. And it's has no windows. And when you go on, there's a few Facebook groups in Arizona, or like Arizona Adventures, or what to do in Arizona, that sort of stuff. And questions are posed in there like, hey, I'm got some relatives coming in from out of town. Where should I take them? This place is always listed like 3-4 times in a thread. You got to take them here. So I checked it out one time with Logan and Megan, and we went in, and it was fantastic, and low prices, fantastic food, crappy atmosphere. It was amazing. It was truly amazing. I mean, it was just like, wow, we got to come back to this. This is awesome. How about you? Like, what's your favorite hang where you just, it's a totally go-to place that has fantastic food, that's the best food around where you're at?
In the area around here.
It's hard because you got a lot of box store type stuff.
I honestly don't care about the box store stuff. You give me a chain restaurant and I will just, no thanks. And I will go someplace else. Favorite restaurants around here. There is a place in Camas, Washington, which is east of Vancouver, heading out
the gorge on the Washington side.
Yep. Called Natalya's Cafe. That is just a breakfast place. They're only open till 2 p.m. And I've been there so many times. I know the owner and the head cook just because I've been in there so many times. To the
There's
point
a place
where
in inner Southeast Portland that used to be like that for me.
Yeah, and it was to the point where when we celebrated the clinic's 1-year anniversary, I called them and said, I know you guys close at 2. Would you be interested in hosting a dinner for me and my staff? And they jumped on it. They said, yeah, absolutely. And so they did dinner for me and my staff then. And I had they were absolutely my first thought, my first choice everywhere, because I love that place. And
nice.
Most people outside of Camas in southeast Vancouver. Never heard of them.
There's hundreds and hundreds of places like that across America. I think that's awesome.
Oh, there's probably thousands of places like that across America, but it's fantastic. It's amazing. As far as more like well-known,
it doesn't have to be well-known. That was a perfect answer.
Okay, I was going to say, because I've got plenty of other answers that I love. If you're looking in the area, if you're looking for Chinese food, HK Cafe in Eastern Portland, in China, it's like the Chinese district on 82nd, is the best place for dim sum, like locally. To get better, you'd have to be in Chinatown in Seattle. Like you can't find it better in this area down here. There's Assembly Brewing, which is in Southeast Portland. They make what they call a Detroit style pizza, where there's none of that crust around the edge, because it's cooked in like a sheet pan, and the cheese just gets all the way to the very edge, and it gets caramelized over there in the end. Oh my God, it's freaking good.
Man, I have not eaten very much today, dude. You've got to stop right now. All right.
You ask. So.
I got 4 questions left.
All right,
you
go for it.
Probably have some left too, but if you only take 30 to 45 seconds on each one, we could probably get through both of our sets.
Okay.
Is there any behavior modification that took place during the COVID-19 pandemic that you think would be a good idea to continue for any reason?
I like the idea that people wear masks when they're sick. The Asian cultures do it. And so you go to the airport, you see people of Asian descent wearing a mask because they're not feeling well. Can we do that? Or
they don't want to get anything.
Yeah. Can we do that in America where wearing a mask is not a big deal? So if you're not feeling well, take a mask on. Protect the other people.
It's hard. It's hard because I'm not against mask use. If you need to do that, you need to do that. And there's no problem, and I have no problem. And I have until recently here locally. Yeah. I'm fully vaccinated, etc. However,
if you're not feeling well, wear a mask.
Well,
there's nothing wrong.
It's interesting because I did find though during the pandemic that I just missed faces. I missed expressions and seeing people smile and so forth. I'm not talking about
24/7 for
I know you're not. I know you're not. But it ends up being what I would be worried about would be kind of an overall mentality where something like that may just end up dominating a culture. And I don't know. I don't know how I would feel about that.
Go to Tokyo. You'll see one person in 20 wearing a mask. Why? Because they've got a cold that day.
Here's the hardest question you're going to answer today.
If it's harder than the Shane Waldron as the next coach question, I'll be surprised.
Here's the equivalent question I talked about earlier to a question that you asked. Would you rather be known as a great teacher to many or a great father to your own boys?
Great father to my own boys.
Good answer.
And there's no hesitation. I am a teacher.
You could affect.
I am a teacher.
You could affect hundreds of
I know. And
kids.
You're talking to a teacher. I already work with hundreds of kids, and this is going to sound egotistical, but I'm good at my job. I genuinely am. And I understand that. But for me personally, my boys mean everything to me. I would so much rather be a good father for them and a crummy teacher for the kids that I work with than the other way around. And
that says a lot about you. That's awesome.
Yeah.
2 more questions.
Mm-hmm.
What do you think of the unidentified aerial phenomenon that has been supported with visual evidence and credible witnesses at this point and a government report?
Honestly, 2 years ago, I would have laughed at you, but I've seen some incredible stuff that the military produced and was left classified for 30 years and now has been not. I am left just not knowing what to think.
Well, they don't have to be from outside of this world. They don't have to be from outside of the earth
No,
necessarily, but boy,
but
there's a lot of stuff going on.
but what is it? And the fact that, it was one of those things where it was always funny that when camera phones became ubiquitous, right? What were the two things that happened? Suddenly, police brutality became way more prevalent, and UFO sightings became way less, right? Because now suddenly there was evidence of certain things, and there wasn't evidence of these other things, and so it was one of those things where you just assumed, like, okay, once camera phones became a thing, why did all UFO sightings become non-existent? Because no one could ever prove it. But then you start to get the stuff especially the stuff that the Navy
videos and
that the Navy has released has been unclassified, and some of the other stuff, and you just go, okay.
Well, those objects are doing things that are not capable of current technology, like turning sideways at 5.5 Gs and disappearing off a radar screen in split seconds. That's crazy.
And you look at some of this stuff, and it's like, I'm not going to be that person who's be like, oh my God, this is 100% proof the aliens have visited or anything crazy like that. But I'll look at that and go, I don't know what that is.
Yeah, I'll have to turn you on to some stuff.
That's compelling evidence to make me rethink everything I've thought on the subject for the last 40 years. And I'm willing to be open to the idea that this is new evidence that's worth considering.
So I have one more question that I want to really ask you, but I want to be fair, and you need to go. And I literally, I've got to stop our recording in 3 minutes. So
okay, you are one of the most the biggest audiophiles I know. Like, you love to go to concerts. You're super into music, all of that. If the Seahawks make the Super Bowl again in the next couple of years, and you got to have your dream pick to do the halftime show, who would you pick?
I would choose, the first band that comes to mind as a band that's just completely full of energy, that would just totally rock the place and get it just riled. And that would be The Offspring. It's a band that nobody else would pick. But I tell you what, when they show up and get on stage and hit the first note, you're going to be involved, and you're going to be, your energy level is going to increase, because these guys will make it happen. So, I mean, that, to me, that's a band I've always thought I would love to have play a birthday party. Like, what band would you choose to appear if you could choose a band to play at your birthday? That would be the band, because to me, everyone would have fun. And it would be just a great time. And that's what I would want.
That is an unexpected choice, and I love it. What would you think of if the Seahawks, let's say the Seahawks made it to the Super Bowl this year, and you heard that the Foo Fighters were going to be the halftime show?
That's another band that's right in the same pocket. Like, the Foo Fighters live show is second to none. Honestly, second to none. They are just amazing live. So I would pay hundreds of dollars to see that, because it would be just a once in a lifetime deal.
Yeah.
All right.
Dave Grohl.
He's fantastic.
On that stage. Oh my God, that would be amazing.
So the last question I had was, by the time your time on the earth has passed, what do you believe will have become the single greatest scientific discovery or achievement by humans? But we don't have time to answer that. I'm serious. We need to go.
If those of you that are watching the YouTube version of this, if you saw the shock value on my face when he asked that question,
we're going to literally have to record a second segment, because I have to literally stop.
That would be an entire show. I
okay,
have no
let's
idea.
Stop. Maybe we can start a scientific program, because that would be fun. But seriously, I got to wrap this up, dude.
Let's do it.
I honestly do. All right. remember to come by and say hi to us in downtown Seattle at Ozzy's on Monday, live show. It's going to be a great opportunity to ask us questions and be a part of an event. This is going to be a ton of fun. We'll have some more announcements on that on Twitter as the week progresses. Find Keith on Twitter at Myers NFL. I'm at NW Seahawk. The show is at Hawks Playbook. Seahawksplaybook.com has all of the podcasts, all of the YouTube videos, articles. It has links to all the NFL news that you can ever want. So I would suggest visiting it and scrolling through and see what you can find.
There may also be some announcements from Bill and I to all of you about things to come.
Yeah, absolutely. Next week, for sure. Next week. We'll have some announcements next week.
Yep.
All right. So until next time, Keith.
Go Hawks.
Go Hawks.
Seahawks Playbook Podcast listeners, thanks for joining us for another edition of the show. You can find us on Twitter. Phil is at NW Seahawk. Keith is at Myers NFL. And the show is at Hawks Playbook. You can listen and subscribe to the show at SeahawksPlaybook.com.